Hi, I'm Anna,
I'm Jessica.
and this is the Paranoia Pair.
Start. All right.
It's happening. We're doing the Ouija episode.
Oh, I was like, what's happening?
It's happening.
Something's happening. Too late, too. The storm's gone now.
The Ouija pillow just starts moving around the room.
Okay, so obviously the topic's on Ouija boards, as we've just discussed. That's something, when I first started looking into this, I thought, like, after reading some stuff about it, I was like, oh, this actually sounds a lot less scary than I thought they were.
Mhm.
Maybe we could use them. And then the second time I started reading into it, I said, oh, fuck that. No, never mind. Like, I'm good. Um, so back in 1874, there were two sisters that moved with their family to a farm near Hydesdale in Wayne County, New York. Throughout the next year, rumors began to spread through the neighborhood about the girls, who I think were like 11 and 14 at the time, communicating with a spirit through rappings and knockings. And one night, even a neighbor witnessed it along with their mother, of them communicating with this spirit, and they would ask like yes or no questions,
Mhm.
and then the spirit would like tap or move a piece of furniture to like answer their questions. Um the girls had supposedly communicated with the spirit of a man named Charles, who had been murdered in their house 5 years prior to them moving in. Soon after this incident, Kate and Maggie's mother moved them to live with their adult sister Leah. And then their older sister Leah began. The mom moved them in with their sister to keep them safe from the spirit. And then the sister's like, oh, I'm going to use these cool skills to
Bring the spirit with us.
and make money. So then the older sister Leah began managing public demonstrations of her sister's abilities. And in 1859, the three girls moved to New York City and began holding regular seances.
I think I remember hearing something about these three girls,
Really?
the three sisters. Yeah, I think I remember hearing about it on a podcast, but I don't remember which one.
Yeah, this was my first time hearing about it. I mean, other than like other things about the
I
Ouija,
think
but
it was My Favorite Murder.
I tried listening to that podcast, I think once. The two sisters are associated with the beginning of the spiritualism movement that took over America. And I think it's kind of funny that like we had this spiritualism movement in like the 1800s. Meanwhile, like 150 years ago, we were still hanging people for like growing herbs
Yeah,
in their garden.
because they were quote witches.
Yeah, and then like 100 and something years later, they're like, maybe talking to the dead isn't so bad after all.
They're making these teas and they taste good.
Witch! There's this one video and it makes me laugh every time. And the one person's dressed like a witch, and the other girl is dressed like a pilgrim. And then she just like taps her foot. She goes, witch! And I always think about it. I don't think you know what I'm talking about because you're looking at me like I'm stupid.
I don't think I do.
Okay, I'm going to find it. Not right now, but one day.
One day. Like 5 years from now.
Witch! In 1855, Maggie ended up converting to Roman Catholicism and rarely served as a medium anymore. After years, the performances and demands led both sisters to alcoholism. And then in 1872, while in England, Kate married and had 3 children. And then in 1885, she left to return to the States with her children. And 2 years later, her kids would be taken from her due to her alcoholism. Maggie, because, okay, these two sisters are what started the spiritualism. Like the spiritualism is tied back to these two sisters starting their seances, talking to the spirits
Mhm.
and everything else. After that, this kicked up and it was like a fad. But Maggie ended up claiming that the original seance that they did with that neighbor that one night was just a prank they decided to pull on their superstitious mother. But then later she redacted her confession and she returned to spiritualism to get by. And then both sisters ended up just living in poverty until they died.
Oh god.
So it didn't do a whole lot of good. Um, the spiritualism during this time, America's seen it normal to spend Saturday nights holding parties, doing seances, and trying to communicate with spirits, and then waking up the next morning to go to Sunday church services, which is just like blows my mind because nowadays, like, you can't even, like, that's witchcraft. You can't do that in church.
Yeah.
Seances in church the next day. Another cause of this movement picking up is the Civil War. Many families were needing closures for their loved ones who never returned and used this as a means of trying to communicate with them. The process back then was a slow process, and required a lot of patience. Basically, during the seance, there'd be like the group of people around the table, like the typical what you assume a seance to be.
Mhm.
And then somebody would read off the alphabet and then wait for a knock. So it'd be like A, B,
God, that would be
C, and then like tap, tap.
awful.
Yeah. So it was like a really slow process. So eventually the first, I guess, tool was made to talk to spirits, and it was a planchette, which is it looks pretty similar to what we know nowadays as a planchette, but like it was on wheels and it had a pencil like attached to it. So instead of moving across the board, which hasn't been invented yet, they would use it to like write, like they would put their hands on it and then the spirit would move their hands to like write letters,
Mhm.
which obviously could be like probably pretty hard to read because the pencil never lifts up. So I feel like it's gonna be a lot of mumbo jumbo. I never wrote in cursive back in that time. Never mind. Right?
I feel like it was pretty common, or it was like they had, like, printed letters, but they were, like, very fancy looking.
Fancy stuff.
Fancy script.
Um,
That's the official name, fancy script.
so these planchettes became pretty popular once the Kirby and Company began manufacturing it.
I wonder if it's the same company who makes those vacuums. The Kirby vacuums.
I've never heard of it.
Really?
Yeah.
My grandma had one. Actually, I'm pretty sure she still has it.
Wait, are they one of those really big ones with the? Because when you said your grandma had it, my grandma used to have one, and it had like this big tank, and then a long hose that was connected to one of those.
No, I'll show you. We had one. It was awful. They're so expensive. My husband got roped into it because I have really bad social anxiety, so I went outside I was outside for like an hour while the guy like talked my husband into buying this a fucking expensive ass vacuum. They have these like really cute ones. Like everyone in England has them. They look like this. I kind of want it. It's adorable.
For $500?
Yeah, but they're adorable.
Okay, so Kirby and Company began manufacturing the first planchette. In 1890, a group of men, Elijah Bond, Charles Kennard, and William Fold, um, changed the design of the planchette from being on wheels with a pencil attached to what we commonly see nowadays. The planchette now had 3 pegs with felt on the bottom to smoothly glide over the board they advertised to go with it, the Ouija board.
I
The
think I
group
have some planchettes down there.
we could
Yes.
just joshing. I'm a wussy. Do you have planchettes?
They're not real. They're just like the wooden decoration ones.
I feel like any planchette could be a real planchette.
Yeah. I think I have 3. 3 or 4 of them. They should be down there.
Isn't that the witches? Oh, they don't even have holes. Oh, they do have holes. Those are so fun. We got to get little things for you to hang. You could put them like on the wall. That'd be so cool. Yes. The group called upon a medium, Helen Peters, who is the sister-in-law to Elijah Bond. Helen asked the board what it wanted to be called, and the board
The board.
the board spelled out Ouija. When asked what this meant, the board spelled good luck. That is so sinister to me. Good luck for what? Does the name mean good luck, or is the board telling you good luck?
I know. I'd be like, oh no.
Like, shortly after coming up with this new idea, the group took the board to file for a patent so nobody else could make it. The patent officer said that he would grant the patent if the board could correctly spell his name, which at the time was supposed to be unknown to all in the group. And of course, the patent officer was amazed when the board correctly spelled his name right.
Was
Because
it Tom?
probably, honestly,
What's a very
John
common
Doe,
oldie name?
Will Smith, John Smith.
William Wilbert.
I don't think anyone was named Wilbert except that pig.
That's Wilbur.
Oh, close enough. So the same medium that got the name of the Ouija board and the sister-in-law to Elijah ended up denouncing the board and telling people not to use it after some family heirlooms went missing and her family turned to the board for answers. When the board spelled out a name, it caused a great division in the family, and even Helen disagreed with the board. And I want to know what name it spelled out and why. It didn't say.
Watch
but I
it
feel,
be Helen.
That's what I was thinking. It's probably Helen. She's like, no.
It wasn't me. I swear.
This board doesn't know what it's
This
talking
board's
about.
lying.
So on her deathbed, Helen told people not
She
to use the
confessed.
board and that the board tells lies. Oh,
I like the fact that it's like, good luck. And then everyone who uses it has terrible, awful luck.
2 years after the patent was formed, um, Kennard was forced out of the group.
What kind of
And
name is Kennard?
okay, Charles Kennard.
Okay.
Charles Kennard was forced out of his company, and William Fuld, who is quote the father of the Ouija board, took over and changed the name of the company to the Ouija Novelty Company. Him and his brother mass produced the boards after that. Um, there were other spirit boards available at the time, but the Ouija board was the most popular.
Hmm.
It was even at one point advertised as a fun date night game.
What the fuck? I wonder what the other boards were, like what
I
they
know.
looked like, because that's.
How do you make it really any different at that point?
Mhm.
I don't know. At the time, men and women weren't supposed to be alone, like left alone with each other. Definitely weren't supposed to be touching. So the game called for two open-minded people who were of opposite gender, and you had to touch fingertips and knees together to play the game. William Fuld, one of the main
Mhm.
manufacturers, decided after a session with the board to build a factory for the manufacturing of the board because, quote, the board told him to. As the story,
Valid.
yeah, I know. This piece of cardboard told me to do this. I need a loan.
This sheet of paper actually told me I need to move across the country.
That's like that one lady that Winchester. She built that crazy house because the spirits of the ones her husband created the Winchester rifle or something,
Mhm.
and then he died, all their kids died, and she was told that the spirits of the ones who died at the hands of that weapon were coming for her or something, and so she had to keep building her house and never stop or else the spirits would get to her, and she has, like, some real big wonky house.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And she's still alive, so apparently it worked.
Oh, no, she died.
Oh.
She's 203 years old. She's still building. As the story goes, one day, William Fuld was on the roof of the factory watching as a flagpole was being installed and the iron support he was holding onto broke. He managed to catch himself on the fall down with a windowsill, but then the windowsill would mysteriously close on his hands, causing him to fall again. Surprisingly, William survived with many broken bones, including some of his ribs. On the way to the hospital, the carriage he was being transported in hit a bump, which caused one of his broken ribs to shift and pierce his heart, ultimately killing him.
What the fuck?
Like, that is some Final Destination stuff. You fall off a roof, catch yourself on a windowsill, the windowsill falls, you hit the ground, you survive just to hit a bump. So the Ouija board continued to grow in popularity. An author named Pearl Curran claimed to use the Ouija board to contact a spirit named Patient Worth, who was supposedly an author, I think, from like the 1700s, and went on to publish multiple books with this spirit. And the books are literally like Pearl Curran is the one who wrote the books, but she has the author of Patient Worth. So I think that's kind of cool. Like, there's two books that I seen off the bat, and it was The Sorry Tale by Patience Worth and Hope Trueblood by Patient Worth. They don't have good reviews. They're like a 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. I mean, that's not bad.
No, I mean, I'd assume for a book made in like the 1800s that maybe it was at the 1900s at this point. I just assume the book to have a little better reviews, but it's probably because we don't know how to read books like that. Because I don't. World War II started again around this time, and so there was once again an increase in the use of trying to use Ouija boards to contact their missing loved ones.
Mhm.
In 1996, the Parker brothers purchased rights to the Ouija board, which is now Hasbro. But so because Hasbro owns it now, but
That's wild.
I know, isn't that funny? So the Parker brothers purchased the rights to the Ouija board, and it actually outsold Monopoly, and is still the only board game to ever outsell Monopoly.
Oh my god.
I think that's crazy that so many people used to own Ouija boards. You'd think you'd see more at thrift stores.
Did you see the boards that are like it's a Jesus board? It's like some kind of like ah,
Like, to contact Jesus?
I think
I
so.
don't think I don't
It's
think
like
it
the religious version.
I don't think he's gonna answer.
Um, yeah, it's a Christian board.
Sounds like what a demon would say.
It's called a Holy Spirit board.
Does it have the picture of Jesus on it?
It does. Mhm. Communicate directly with Jesus Christ.
Oh.
It looks weird.
It looks like a cult thing. I don't think Jesus is gonna answer.
Yeah, I don't even understand the letters. They're just normal letters, just an old script.
I was gonna say, like, are they Hebrew?
No, they're just normal letters. Anyway, I just thought that was wild.
Yeah, I feel like no real Christian church is gonna condone this.
Yeah.
Bring that to Sunday school.
Oh my god.
Up until this point, the Ouija board was kind of like some people took it seriously, but it wasn't like a nefarious thing. I mean, which is like crazy to me because I assumed that a spirit board was always Ouija board was always considered bad.
Mhm.
So up until this point, it wasn't. And I mean, no one really had like a bunch of claims that like they were being haunted by demons and everything up to this point. Most people didn't take it serious, but like those who did, it wasn't like a bad thing to be doing. And like even like churches weren't like super hard on it like they are now. Like if you, I'm pretty sure if you bring up a Ouija board at church, like you're getting tackled.
Yeah.
They're gonna,
You're getting banned from the church.
yeah, like they're gonna get you. What changed it all? Can you guess what changed the route of the Ouija board to being scary?
No.
Wrong. In 1973, the well-known horror movie The Exorcist came out,
Oh god.
and it completely changed the way the board was viewed. The premise of the movie was that a young girl used a Ouija board and
Got
ended up getting possessed.
Yeah.
This movie is when the Ouija board really became associated with being evil and a way to communicate with the devil. Um, so there's multiple stories of people specifically talking to the same demon named Zozo. I've seen a few Reddit stories of it, and I've also heard other podcasts talking about it.
Mhm.
In 2009, this guy, Darren Evans, posted his experience when he accidentally contacted the demon Zozo, and he posted his experience on an online forum. When using the Ouija board, the planchette started wildly going back and forth between ZO, 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 which also the first rule I thought was that you don't play alone, but whatever. Darren. The demon said that it had come to take Darren's family to paradise. And when Darren asked where paradise was, the board spelled HELL. Darren then ran to the bathroom where his girlfriend was supposed to be giving their 1-year-old daughter a bath, and he found their baby alone in the tub drowning. He thankfully managed to save her. Darren even claims that Zozo was responsible for sending his daughter to the hospital another time for an unexplainable infection. This story took off, and others shared their stories where they also claimed to have made contact with this demon. The oldest Zozo story comes from the 1816 book Dictionary Infernal by Colin de Plancy, which is has to be French or something. De Plancy tells the story of a young girl who claimed to be possessed by 3 demons named Mimi, Capulet, and Zozo. So, quote, the girl went down the streets on all fours, sometimes forward, sometimes behind. Sometimes she walked on her hands, feet in the air, at the risk of putting passerbyers in the confidence of her position, unquote. Her strange movements, the girl had told people, were commanded by the demons who possessed her. This created enough commotion that a priest came to perform an exorcism on her. When Zozo left her body, it was said that the windows in the room all shattered. The guy who wrote the book, De Plancy, says that he didn't really believe what was going on, but he wrote the book anyways. Some think Zozo is derived from the Mesopotamian god Pazuzu, who was known to be the ruler of demons. The guy, Darren Evans, has a website where like he's showing proof of all the experiences people had with this demon before he had his experience.
Mhm.
And also, which I think is kind of interesting, but I don't think I believe it. There's an unknown commenter on his website saying that she contacted him and thank you for all his help because her and her family had been haunted by this demon Zozo, and that her daughter is apparently living in a mental institution. I'm going to read it anyways. Dear Darren, so glad you could continue the fight. I contacted you first in 2015 when my daughters and myself were affected by this. One daughter is now living in a mental institution, and slowly I have been gaining back my strength and courage and studying to deal with this myself. Every professional we've consulted has gotten us nowhere. They usually won't even touch us. So this mama has dedicated her life and talents to doing what everyone else is too afraid to do. I have dedicated my life to rituals to strengthen us in this world at this time. My native roots in studying shamanism and Wicca are a huge help. The paranormal activity in this world is off the rails, along with the physical world. Bless you for your love, commitment, and fearlessness of this. I'm getting the people I love back in my life. And then, under unknown, again on the exact same day, but 8 minutes later, is basically the same story. Darren, I'm so glad you continue your work. You worked with my daughters and I in 2014 when Z came into our lives and our world turned on end. I lost one daughter to the mental institution and state. No one you referred to us would not help. Many more professionals tried and gave up. I am slowly, through my Native American roots, shamanism, and Wicca, learning how to protect us. I guess I'm confused because on the one it said 2015 and the other one said 2014. But anyways,
That's too similar, yeah.
yeah, his website though is pretty cool with all of his stuff. He also was in a episode of Ghost Adventures
Oh my god.
with
Zach Baggins.
Zach Baggins. So obviously it's very authentic. Where they tried to summon and communicate with Zozo on the show. I wanted to watch it, but to be fair, I did look for it on YouTube, but I didn't look hard enough because I wasn't that interested in watching an episode of Ghost Adventures.
He's such a dirtbag.
Yeah, and I knew it wasn't going to be something serious. And then there's a movie that came out in 2012 called I Am Zozo. It came out in 2012, and he actually is also in that movie where he plays himself. I'm not watching it because it's an indie film, and I'm scared that if I watch indie films that are about scary things, that I'm going to get haunted. So I didn't watch it either. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I forgive you.
So obviously, there are some things where, I mean, I want to believe Darren, maybe with like police reports about what happened to his kid, I could find it a little more believable. I'm definitely not saying I believe him. But there was a pretty interesting experiment that happened in the 70s about a group of Canadian researchers conducted an experiment to see the boundaries of the human mind and the possibility to communicate with the beyond. For this experiment, they made up a story of a man, Philip Aylesford, to see like if the participants he never existed, but to see if they could, I guess, convince the participants that he was real and make them think that they could actually communicate with him. So, like, how much of it's actually real versus like how much of it is actually just the people thinking it's real. Um, so his story was that Philip was an imagined as a 17th century English aristocrat with a dramatic life story. According to the narrative, Philip was a loyalist during the English Civil War. A personal tragedy marred his life through an unrequited love affair with a gypsy girl. I know that's a slur, but that's what it says. Uh, Leading to his wife's accusation of witchcraft and her subsequent execution. Heartbroken and ridden with guilt, Philip was said to have died by suicide in 1654. So that's a story they told the people. And then the group was made up of believers and skeptics, and they met regularly to hold seances. At first, the intent was just to talk to any spirit, but then they started to really focus on Philip, and the group, with time, actually believed they started to make contact with Philip. They were hearing tappings and answers to their questions. Their table started moving, and they supposedly even seen it levitate. All of this was supposed to also be like recorded.
Where's the recording?
I don't know. I don't think it's that believable because obviously if they recorded the table levitating,
It's just like fishing line tied
yeah,
around the
you
legs
can
of the
tell.
chair.
um so this experiment just kind of showed that I think that people kind of see what they want to see.
Well, and if you're scared, you're like on hyper alert.
Everything is going
Mhm.
to be a sign.
Yeah. And everything is gonna freak you out.
Yeah. like last night when I woke up to go pee and I started getting the thought of Zozo in my head and then I was scared to go to bed.
God.
I was like, "Is he here?" They like the smarts people, psychologists and stuff,
Mhm.
they claim that the board just works through a mechanism called the ideomotor effect, which is that basically our muscles move, like our subconscious moves our muscles sometimes. So even if you don't realize it, you could still kind of be like moving the board, which I feel like it's so impossible to like believe that the board's moving on its own
Mhm.
with being attached. Now,
Yeah,
it's a
just, like, kind of like when you're standing still, you're kinda, like, swaying a little bit back and
yeah.
forth.
I don't know. If you didn't have to touch the planchette and then it moved, like, oh, heck yeah, I believe that. But like, there's nobody in this world I trust enough to believe that they're not going to be moving the planchette. I trust you, but I do feel like you would fuck with me.
If we were like, "Let's for serious do this," I wouldn't.
But then I still wouldn't trust. Even if it moved, I'd be like, I bet Anna's moving this.
I'd let you stab me in the leg.
What's
I don't know, I just feel like
I'm not doing it. Stab me, stab me.
stab me in the
I'm telling you, I'm not doing it.
if you moved a second to stab you in the leg, and then
You'll sneeze and I'll be like, um, so for hundreds of years, the Ouija board has been a part of American culture, once to help grieving families reach out to their loved ones, and then it became more nefarious and is now frowned upon using.
I feel like it's kind of the same with voodoo.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Well, I feel like we're not allowed to most people aren't allowed to use voodoo anyways.
Yeah, I feel like only a very limited group of people are allowed to do that.
Yeah. But now, like,
Like, it's very demonized.
yeah, because apparently voodoo has nothing to do with, like, um, I think, like, cursing family. I think that's
Yeah.
called
It's
hoodoo?
it's something I don't
But
remember.
voodoo, I think, focuses on healing
Yeah.
and, but, like, culture now has demonized it to be, like, super scary and that, like,
Mhm.
you're assuming there's a guy with some fancy hat that's gonna, like and a
Remember
walking cane for some reason.
remember those voodoo doll keychains?
Yes.
I had one of those.
I
I
know.
think you gave it to me.
I think I had a couple. Those things were super cool.
I loved them. They were so cute.
Yes.
But I remember watching, some show or, like, documentary about, voodoo, and it wasn't, like, bad at all.
Yeah,
Like, it was
no.
all about, like, healing and, like,
Protection, I
yeah,
think. Yeah. I think there's a second thing called hoodoo with an H,
yeah.
and I think that's where it can get a little, like, scarier, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like it's, like, in the same realm as, like, witchcraft, like, cause like, crystals and, like, stuff like that, like,
Yeah.
sure, and then there is, like, a darker element, but, like, it's believed that, like, if you are doing something dark or have, like, nefarious, like, intent, then that intent will, like, go back to you, so, like, a lot of people, like, won't even touch it.
Yeah, and I feel like voodoo's one of those things you shouldn't touch unless you have, um, family ties to it, like, cultural ties to it.
Mhm. Or, like, someone who is, like, helping you that has, like
Yeah. I was thinking about doing an episode on, like, modern day witchcraft because obviously
I think that would be fun.
everyone knows about witchcraft trials and, like, all that, but, like because in the beginning, I used to think, like, modern day witchcraft was people actually believing they could fly on a broom and, like, do real magic.
Yeah.
So, like, I always thought it was so cringy when people are like, "Oh, I practice witchcraft," and I'm like, "Okay."
And then you just imagine, like, them, like,
With, like, a
ratty
giant cauldron
yes,
that's
like
smoking
or,
and
like, in the woods, like, with, like, bones, like,
okay,
chanting around a
I
fire.
do believe that some of them do that, and I
Chanting around
yeah,
fires?
they have covens. We have covens around here.
Oh my god. I think there's a cat in my closet.
Go check if there's a cat in your closet.
That was
Otherwise, I'm bringing you a sage and we're doing witchcraft. Oh my gosh, Ginger. I was ready to go to the church. That was so creepy. Hi, Ginger.
it's the cat in my closet. Knocked
Goodness.
something over.
We thought it
Scaring
was
the
a
shit
demon for
out of
sure.
us.
Hello.
At least it's not storming anymore.
I know. I would have peed in your
God.
chair. Thanks for listening.
If you enjoyed this episode, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook at Paranoia Pair Pod. And we will see you next Friday.
Stay spooky.